You're having a technical.
Yes, good afternoon. Oh, sorry, good evening, nearly, isn't it? Yes, I hope everybody is well. This is my third one today, and I'm starting falling into sleep. So somebody please wake me up. Um, okay. Yes, it's nice to have Beth back. Hello. How
Hello
are
there.
you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I'm okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for asking. I'm really, really. It's yes. Got the weather outside. It's lovely weather outside, isn't it?
Oh, I know. I've loved all your pictures that you've been putting on Facebook, all those lovely green leaves and blue skies.
Oh, it's nice down here in the West Country. Oh yeah. You
I
know what?
must come and see sometime.
You should come down. Bring your lovely your boyfriend down and your children down. It's nice.
Will do.
Go into a caravan in Devon Cliffs. There's
Nice.
a nice caravan site called Devon Cliffs. Okay, guys. Enough about me, But Beth, what are we going to talk about today?
We are going to talk about no. Yeah.
No.
No. No. It's a very important word to be able to say, but so many of us find it incredibly difficult to say. And we can find our lives thrown into chaos by the fact that we just can't seem to do it. We end up on committees we don't want to be doing. We end up in relationships we don't want to be in. We end up having to run errands and do jobs and things that we don't really want to be doing. And it's as if because we can't say no, we're kind of not able to live the life we want to live. It's that profound. But there are so many of us who really do struggle with it. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that today, understand why it's so difficult, and maybe some tips on trying to say no.
Trouble is, saying no, it's like uh, sometimes I'm afraid to say no because I might offend people.
Yeah, yeah, that's absolutely right. There's really good evolutionary reasons why we find it extremely awkward to say no. So it's not us being rubbish. It's just the way we've evolved. So we used to be in tribes, and in those tribes, you absolutely had to be a member of the tribe to survive. You had to work as a team, and so you were expected to go along with what the tribe was doing. And if you said no, you ran the risk of, at the very least, that person then not reciprocating when you needed them to do something, and possibly being even excluded from the tribe. And of course, if you're kicked out of the tribe, that was certain death because a predator would get you, or you'd starve, or whatever. So there's very good reasons why we evolved to find it hard to say no. And then on top of that, we've got a society that doesn't want us to say no. It wants us to be compliant. It wants us to be smiley. It wants to go along with things. It doesn't want us, if you think about the new legislation that's come through about protesting, protesting is people getting together in a public place peacefully and saying no to things. No, we don't agree with that. No, we disapprove. And that's one of the central tenets of democracy is the ability for people to say yes or no. That's what we do with our vote.
Right.
So it is really important to do, but society doesn't like it. Society has mixed views about protests, and I think particularly for women, men also, but you're expected to say yes, you're expected to be nice, you're expected to go along to get along. And again, if you think about our consumer society, if you refuse to believe ad campaigns and things like that, no, I don't need that new hairdryer. No, I don't need to buy that food. No, we're encouraged to want things, to say yes to things, because we're convinced that it'll make our life better, or the neighbours will think that we're very successful, or whatever it is. So saying no there's multi-layers. There's evolutionary development, and then on top of that is a society that wants us to be compliant. So yeah, so we must beat ourselves up. Sorry, Steve.
I don't like saying no to anybody.
No. Yeah. So how do you? Very funny. How do you? How do you do no and kind at the same time? Do you think? Because that's your big thing, kind, right? K word. That is you, Steve. Yeah. Kind beer, right? So how do we say no and be kind? Do you struggle with that? What do you do?
Well, I do struggle with it. I'm just taking over, like, I don't know if I told you, but I've just taken over a stroke club, in eczema, because I've had strokes and stuff. And the trouble is, sometimes I've got to say no because it's a part of the club thing. But in my own life, sometimes I find it, for me, I find it difficult to say no, because I am not that sort of person not to say no. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally get it. And also, I think we find it easier to say no maybe on other people's behalf. When I'm representing somebody or advocating for somebody, I can be a right pit bull. I'm absolutely happy to say no. I'm absolutely happy to put other people's backs up if it's to support and defend somebody else. I just struggle with doing it for me.
I'll tell you straight now. A while back, sorry, years ago, I don't want to tell you, but I remember I met this woman on a dating agency, and I was afraid. I didn't like her, and I was afraid to say no to her. I thought I would just meet as friends now. Then she said, "Oh, do you like me? Do you like me?" I go, "Oh yeah, you're all right. Yeah, nice, you're all right." And really, I didn't like her, but I wanted to stay friends with her. And we met again. We met again for coffee, and she said, "You don't really like me, do you?" And I said, "I do, I do." And the trouble is, in the end, I had to send a letter to her. Because I didn't want to say it in front of her face, because I'm afraid, because I've been rejected in my life, quite a few times, and I don't like people being hurt. I'm not that sort of guy that for people to be hurt. I'd rather kind of like everybody live in harmony, but we can't live in harmony and peace, can we? You know what I mean? So.
No, that's right, and that's a brilliant example. I mean, that's the sort of thing, they base classic sitcom plot lines on. It's like 6 months later and they're married. It's good. I just couldn't say no. I couldn't upset her. So, and I bet there's people like that who perhaps haven't got a lot of self-confidence, and maybe they do quite like the person, but they're very aware that it's not their dream partnership, but they don't say no to it because they think, well, what's the point of upsetting her? What's the point of upsetting everybody else? I wonder how many brides have gone through with it on their wedding day, even though their heart was saying no, just because they didn't want to upset people and things. I'm sure it's happened so many times.
Of course, I know somebody who didn't like their partner. Well, they were in love, and what happened was they got married. They were about to get married, and 2 days beforehand, she sat down, and she said, "Well, I don't want to do this. I don't love the bloke. I don't love the bloke." And around about 3, I think she went through it. She went through the marriage thing and gone through everything else. And about 6 weeks after, I think it was, she was telling me, she filed for divorce.
Yeah, it's just kind of kicking the can down the road, isn't it? In that situation.
Yeah.
So it is tough. But one thought I'd like to share to try and basically it is uncomfortable, and there's very good reasons why. And we can't just make it comfortable. It's really difficult to do. So we just have to kind of get comfortable with it being uncomfortable, right? And one of the thoughts that might help with this is the thought that there's always a cost, right? That you're always saying no to somebody, right? So let's say, you really wanted Sunday afternoon off because you're exhausted. You know that you've got a busy working week on Monday, and you promised yourself and your partner or whatever a bit of quality time together. But then somebody says, "Oh, someone's dropped out the church fake. Can you come and help?" And you really don't want to. When you want to say no but you don't, right? What you're doing is you're saying no to yourself, right? So by saying yes to that fate, you're saying no to you, to what you wanted to do, to your needs, right? So there's always somebody that gets a no, even when you're saying yes. So you always have that choice to think about is, okay, if I'm going to say yes to this person, I know I'm saying no to myself. And you can only do that for so long before it really takes a toll on your mental and emotional health. Imagine if you had a partner where, like, every time you asked for a hug, for instance, they said no, right? How long would you stay with that partner if they said no all the time to what you needed, right? If you had a job where every time you asked for a day's holiday, the boss said no, how long would you stay in that job? But many of us, for years and years and our whole lives, say no to ourselves, to our needs.
Do you say no?
Right, so I'll talk about my situation because I'm going to move on to that in a bit. But yeah, that's something I'm working on. I'm much better at I'm good at saying no for work. I'm good at saying no for mum stuff, because mum stuff isn't valued. Being a mother, because it doesn't pay a wage, it's often not seen as important as my other job, which is running a coaching business. And I've got much better at saying no because I'm with my kids. I took that week off for WIT. People were still contacting me and going, yeah, but could you just do, I'm like, no, because I'm taking a week off my kids. But for a lot of us women, that's quite hard to do. So I'm definitely getting better at it. But yeah, so I'll move on to the sort of the other aspect of it, because obviously it's a theme of this podcast in particular is, you speak to a lot of people who've come through trauma and abuse. They've survived it and gone on to thrive. And I think saying no is particularly problematic for people like me who've been in abusive relationships. Now, when you're in an abusive relationship, you don't always have the choice to say no. That's part of what the abuse is. In some ways, it's the essence of it, is that you don't get to say no. To give the example of, I was in a domestic abuse relationship for about 7 years. It wasn't an option for me really to say no to sex, because otherwise he'd get angry, and then it was a choice between sex or violence. So essentially I wasn't able to say no to that. Yeah. And in my last relationship, it wasn't abusive as such by any means, but if say he wanted to do A and I wanted to do B or something, so I'd say no to A, he would sort of nod and go, okay, fine, but then he'd go and do A anyway. So he just completely ignored my no. It had no power to him. He had no respect for that no. So again, my ability to say no was minimal, really. So in this relationship I'm in now, I get to situations where I think, oh, I don't really want to do that. Oh yeah, I can just say no. Great. This person I'm in a relationship with isn't going to have big paddy. He's not going to shout at me. He's not going to hurt me in any way. I can just say no, and he'll be cool about it. So that's the thing. When you survive abuse, it's like 3 stages. So 1 is surviving it, 2 is healing, right? But then 3 is then when you go back into the fray, right? You find that you've still got all the old habits you had when you were in an abusive relationship. And I'm finding in my new relationship, which is totally healthy and happy, that I'm just coming across every now and then a habit where I think, oh, hang on, this is quite a low self-esteem habit. This is quite a disempowered habit. This is a sort of habit I had to have to not make trouble and behave myself in past relationships. And I don't need to have that habit now. So I need to learn a different way of doing things. And I think that's very much stage 3 for all of us who are, wanting to move forward. So just thoughts around that is that, I think possibly a definition of abuse is not being able to say no in the relationship you're in. What do you think?
What do I think? I think with the abuse that you've had, does sometimes when you like in the relationship you're in with now, does sometimes does the old stuff come up with you? Do you get all the memories coming up, all the flashbacks and everything?
Yeah, none of that happens because I've let the feelings go, and I've put the memories, I've allowed them to just go into the past. And often when we have trauma, we get flashbacks, we get repetitive memories, toxic memories repeating on a cycle, because what's really happening there is our unconscious mind is trying to warn us that it thinks the same situation is about to happen again. Right. And so it's trying to wave a red flag, because the unconscious mind communicates in emotions, it communicates symbolically. So that's what it does. And there's a specific intervention in NLP called timeline therapy, which allows you to basically float back as if you were going back in time. You're not really, obviously, but it's just a visualization.
Yeah.
Visualizing back to the first event that caused your negative belief or your toxic emotion that keeps coming up, and like anger, where you just feel, oh my God, it's just ruling my life, I've got no control over it. It allows you to go back to the very first time that happened, and it allows you to learn what you needed to learn from that to make sure it doesn't happen again to you. And then the anger, that's basically the red flag, is released. There's no need for it anymore, because you've learned what you needed to learn to protect yourself in future.
Right.
So it's that kind of thing, is that I've done a lot of this is what I do with my clients, is allow them to make sense of what's happened so that they can let the emotions go, and then they're not plagued by the repeating memories anymore, because there's no need for them. The body is so pragmatic, it's so efficient, it doesn't bring up memories like that for no reason. It brings them up because it's trying to achieve something. And when it's already achieved it, i.e. it knows you've protected yourself against that happening again, then it doesn't need to do it. It just lets it go.
I've got a question for you from
Good.
Hello, Barbara. How are you?
Hi.
Okay, so Barbara's saying, hi Beth, just a question. When you were having with your other partner, well, when he was wanting sex, couldn't you just say no to him? And if he kept on threatening you and keep on beating you up, the choice was that you walk out the door. Is that right? So why did you stay?
Yeah, well, we've talked about this, haven't we? So, so the choice was that his particular thing, Barbara, was that he was constantly jealous. He was convinced that I was cheating on him, and I never was, never happened. But that was his trigger, right? So saying no to sex, he would immediately think, well, why? Is it because you're sleeping with someone else? So that would immediately kick off a whole hornet's nest of aggression, which, this man was much bigger than me. He was about 6'4", which obviously I tried to avoid. And in terms of leaving, there were various circumstances why I wasn't able to leave. I was very ill for a long time and couldn't work, and I didn't have the support of my family. So I would have pretty much been out on the street. As it was, I was living in Moss Side in a house full of cockroaches and things. So it was a real struggle. But the main reason I didn't leave was because of what was going on in my mind. It was because I'd come from a family background that was in itself abusive. So I'd never felt loved. I'd never felt safe. This was just my normal at that point. I felt that at least with that partner, I had a roof over my head, and I felt comparatively safe. And the rest, I just normalized. I just accepted as that's part of being in a relationship with someone, because it's different if you've had a good childhood, a good family background. You have higher standards, higher expectations, more self-esteem. But when you've come from an abusive background, it's just, yeah,
Yeah.
same,
And
different.
also, Barbara, what you've got to understand is when somebody who's been through abusive relationship, abuse comes under one big umbrella. And I remember when I was a child, I was sexually abused, and trouble is, it affects you in different ways.
Yeah,
And in some relationships, what I've had in the past, I hold my hands up. I'm what you call a jealous sort of person,
yeah,
okay, to my partners, where, I used to, I've calmed down a little bit now, but I've still got a lot to learn, but the trouble is, and if you cannot control, a woman doesn't need to be controlled. A man needs to stop it. All right. So no man can tell you what to do. They cannot tell you what to do. Right? We're all equal. We're all equal at one day. You do what you want. You do what you want. If a man is controlling you, then all I can say to you is this: that you kind of actually sit down and talk about it, or you know, the front door. Because that's your choice. And you can't kind of live in an abusive relationship because if you leave an abusive relationship, and he's going to keep on hitting you. He's going to keep on hitting you and hitting you and hitting you
mm,
until you're in the box, basically.
yeah, yeah. Essentially, that's it. I mean, if only it was as simple as choosing to walk out and stuff. If only it was that simple. But then women would have walked out. Trust me.
Yeah.
Because it is miserable, but it just isn't that simple as
Have I just
anyone, man
have
or
I
woman,
just
can
touched
tell
it?
you.
Have I just touched a nerve with you because you were looking down and I was.
Sorry, sorry. Right, I'll tell you. I was looking down. One of my WhatsApp groups was kicking off my bowl goals, and it just keeps going ding, ding. So I'm just
All
shutting
right.
my phone.
Okay.
Sorry,
No, I just
I didn't
thought
want to interrupt the broadcast. Sorry.
I just thought something upset you because
No, sorry, I was just multitasking.
you. I wish I could multitask like that.
Sorry, mate. I just didn't want all those noises going off. It's
No,
not
that's okay. But
watching it.
Wendy wants to know. Wendy wants to know. In your relationship now,
Mm.
um, in your relationship now, is it better than the last few relationships that you've been in?
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely, absolutely. And he's lovely, but the reason it's better is not just that he's lovely, but that I love myself. That is the key to it, is
Cool.
that I already felt fulfilled. I already felt whole. I describe it as the relationship I have now is the glacé cherry on top of my already delicious iced bun of life. And that's the key to having a happy relationship, is to first have a really great relationship with yourself. There's no point in asking someone else to fill a hole that you have inside you.
Mm.
People talk about, oh, I need a partner to complete me, but you need to be complete yourself and healed
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
And then absolutely, I lean on him, I get support from him, I get affection from him, and then he gets it right back. But we love ourselves as individuals, and
That's it.
that's the
That's
most
what you've got to
important
do
thing.
with it. You've got to start loving yourself before you can start loving other people. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely key to it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, getting back to saying no,
Yes.
right?
No.
Sometimes when you want to kind of say no to people, some people will get offended because they're thinking, well, they don't like me, they don't love me, whatever it is,
Mm,
you know. And how can we kind of like assure them that we do care, but sometimes it's a no.
yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Um, well, language can help a bit, like the power of the but, which is if you use the word but, it negates sort of everything before it, or at least reduces the power of it massively.
What do
So
you mean, but?
but.
Oh, right, okay.
No, we're not talking Kardashians here. the power of the but.
Thank you. Move
Yeah.
on.
So yeah. So I will often say, no, not this time, but please keep asking me because I really do want to help. I'm just not able to right now. So almost the no's at the beginning, but I've said it. I've said no. People always register it when you say no, right?
Right.
So so it's fine to do that. And another way around of doing it is, I really support this church fate. I think it's fantastic, and I absolutely would if I could. And this time it's just a no. So that way you're using an and in a sentence. So yeah, it's and have you heard of? I don't know if I can say the word. Have you heard of an SHIT sandwich? It's an actual management term, and it's about where you say something positive. It's usually it came out of feedback for appraisals for
I've never had
employees.
a shit sandwich.
Oh, we're allowed to say it, okay. So a shit sandwich is the proper term, okay? It's where you say something positive, right? And then you say the negative thing, that's the shit in the sandwich, and then you finish with something
Oh,
positive.
I'll definitely not eat that one then.
But it's like so it would be so shit sandwich format would be I really do support this cause. I'm going to have to say no this time, but please let me know in future because I think you're doing great things.
Right. Okay. And don't
But
have a
but
shit sandwich.
essentially, yeah, and essentially, the truth is, I've said this before, we have no control over how other people feel.
Right.
All we can control is, have we said no for a good enough reason? And saying no to protect yourself is a very good reason. It's always a very good reason. So if you just want that Sunday afternoon off, saying no is a perfectly good reason. You don't have to necessarily explain it to the other person, but so as long as you've done it with a good heart, how the other person feels is their business. It's their business essentially. And I don't know, I've never really come across a situation where I've said no to someone, like in my working life or whatever, and then in future they've said, well, I'm not going to help you out because you said no to me. That never really happens. I find that people are just far too
You
pragmatic.
do that again, Beth?
What again?
Oh, oh, can't help that.
Can you tell that I used to do Amdram?
Sorry?
Can you tell that I used to do amateur dramatics? But
Yes.
yeah, people aren't like that. People just get on with stuff.
Yeah.
And if anything, I would suggest that people who really do get a massive backup about it, I'd be wary of them. I'd be
Mm.
wary of them because it's probably a disproportionate response. They've probably got some sort of issues. Not to judge them, but just to be aware of the fact that it really wasn't a big deal. And if they're sort of feeling really affronted by it, again, it's their stuff, and just to be aware of that. But as long as you're in control of your stuff, it's kind of like, okay, I said no for a good reason. I said it as tactfully as I could. I've said that I'd be interested in helping in the future or whatever. Everything else, that'll just have to happen. That person will just have to feel how they feel.
Yeah. I've got somebody here. I must take this message before we go.
Sure.
And it's got Beth. I've got a bit of a problem with my boss at work. I've got to keep on saying yes to him because I'm actually. Um, I don't think I will. No, no, I don't think I will. I will talk to Beth in a minute about it, and
Sure.
I will inbox you. Um, yeah, I don't think that's appropriate to be on here.
All right. Well, I'll
Anything?
stay on. How do I stay on here after you've finished the show? Do I just stay on here
I
and
was
then
just,
you?
I was just going to tell you that anyway. So
Okay.
so when I finish, just stay there and have a chat. I will talk to you back about it. But then I'll get back to you. Okay. Any more messages, please? Oh, okay. Love the show. Very good, Beth. Does it can sometimes is it very difficult if I even say yes to things and just ignore the situation. Some relationships, I find it. I find if I say yes, then I don't have to kind of like get into an argument with my partner. Ooh,
Okay.
that's about
Well,
pleasing, though, isn't it?
the thing is, if you didn't really feel that was a problem, you wouldn't have written in with that question. So I think you already know the answer. Is that, when you're saying yes to your partner to keep the peace or whatever, no suggestion at all that that partner's being abusive in any way or whatever, but you are running a behavior that is not serving you well because your needs are not being met. And you can only go on for so long in a relationship like that, where
Yeah.
you're giving but not able to receive for whatever reason. And then that imbalance starts to show. So you're actually doing yourself a favor and your partner a favor by starting to tackle that in some way.
Okay, guys. Thank you very much. Thanks, Beth. And as always, brilliant. Um, Thank you, guys. I'm going to be back around about 8:30 tonight. And yes, so yeah, I'll be back around about 8:30 tonight. If you've got any questions or anything else you got, please email me or go onto my podcast site or contact Beth directly. She's on Facebook and I will give you a website address. Please do so. Okay, guys, thank you very much.